recording pad can be open. Study the close relationship of color value and intensity. This is a photo of the Blue Ridge Mountains at some point in time. Download the photo and sketch and join me in painting this monochromatic color scheme. Hi, this is Everett, Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my classroom. Today I'm broadcasting across the USA and around the world. I'm broadcasting from Chesapeake, Virginia, and I'm on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And I'm in my studio today with my wife, Gloria.
Welcome, everyone.
And she'll be monitoring the broadcast and checking with the chat room. Let me turn the chat room on right now. Okay, the chat room's live. If you got questions or comments, go ahead and put them in, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And hope you enjoy the program today. Today, another lesson and another demonstration on how to master color. And I'm going to be going over a lot of things today on value and intensity. And I'm going to do a painting also, a demonstration painting. So first of all, let me take you over to my close-up camera. I got something to show you real quick as a review. This is my website page, everettswatercolors.com, and over here, and when you go to my website, on the first page you'll see is right up here at the very top left in the navigation area, navigation bar. You'll see the live classroom 2023, and that's where you'll see the replay of the video today. When you want to look at the video again, it'll be in that. Just click on that; it'll take you right to the video. Also below that is the Fun with Watercolors. That is where you get a copy of today's drawing and today's photograph. And you can paint along with me and post it in Fun with Watercolors on Everett's Watercolors page on Facebook. So I hope you'll enjoy that. I'd like to see your participation and be able to make comments on your paintings. So let's go to my painting board. Now today, of course, the color wheel is the most important thing when we talk about color. But what I have over here on the right is a chart that shows the color wheel, and it shows the value-color relationship. Starting here with the yellow and going all the way down to the darkest area, which is the blue-violet. Yellow to blue-violet, from light to dark. But there's a lot of colors in between. So let me put the color wheel is something we'll have here all the time, but I've got my color wheel here already paid out. Let me bring this over here. So when I talk about value, I'm talking about there's the value scale here on the left. It goes from white to black. Those are the extremes of value. But we have lots of intermediate value ranges. Right here in the middle is called middle gray. This is the middle area of your colors, or the middle value. But then we have a light value, which is up here in this area here. And we go down here to the dark value of these colors here. And of course, you go down to the low dark, which is what I talked about, violet. So when we talk about value and color, someone will ask when you're doing a painting or looking at a subject or an object, the first question is, well, what color is it? Well, there's also another question you have to have is, how dark is it and how light is it? You need to know the value of the color in order to paint it correctly. So you can take a photograph, real quick photograph of this. Do a screenshot of this particular one here, and I'll bring it up close so you can take a look at it. You can take a screenshot of that and have that as a reference chart when you do your paintings. Okay, so that's the most important thing about knowing value and color. And color has three attributes. The first one is value alongside of U. The U is the color. But next to that is value. How dark is it and how light is it? So we have a way of measuring that. Now, how do you do this in practicality? So let's say you're outdoors looking at a subject and maybe you want to draw or sketch it or do a small sketch painting. How do you determine the values of that particular? Well, the way I do it is I squint my eyes. When you squint your eyes, that reduces the color and gives you the darkness and lightness of the value. So that's the best way to evaluate how dark an object is, not by the color, but by its value. By its value. Okay, so let me move this aside. The next thing I want to talk about is the intensity. Right alongside of value, the color has intensity, and they're very well related. Uh, you have the definition of value is whether it's light or dark. The definition of intensity is it bright or dull? So, but it's a very close relationship between value and intensity. Now, what I've done here is I've taken my palette and I've actually put all my colors here in arrangement. I put the warm colors over here, yellows all the way through the red violet. And over here, I put all my cool colors over here on the right. So I have warm and cool next to each other. Another thing I have here is that over in this box right here, that's white. That's watercolor white. I'm actually using titanium white as the watercolor. And over here, I'm using on this set in this column here, I'm using Payne's gray, either a gray or all the way black. Almost it's black when you put it the full saturation of the color. So you have white and black, and these are the intensities. For example, the yellow, the low intensity, by adding white to the color. And this column right here is the saturation of the color. This is a dark. This is as value. This is the highest value I can get as far as yellow, because yellow is a very light color. But I can always brighten it up and lighten it up by putting a little bit of white with it. And this is what's happened over here. This is the bright scale. Off to the right, I'm adding black to that yellow, and I'm getting the dark, I'm getting the dark intensity of that particular. I'm getting the dull side also. It's dull, but it's also dark. So the values are light to medium to dark, but you also have a bright to medium to dull as far as intensity. So that's the relation between value and intensity. Now, as I go through my chart here, and I'll bring this up. So this is my chart of my colors, and you can take a quick snapshot of that, a little screenshot of that one. These are my palette colors, and my yellows all the way down to my red violets, and all my greens and blues and so forth. And I would suggest that you take your colors that you have in your palette and put them on a chart like this. And then these are the colors you have in your palette. The one on the center column here. And then I would take some a white color, watercolor, titanium white, and I would add that to that color and lighten it up, lighten it and brighten it up. And this will be this column over here with the white. And then I would take a dark color, in this case, Payne's gray, or a dark color, very dark color, and add that to the color. And it also has a range of values and intensity. So I get those values over here. Now let me do a little demonstration down here with some colors. Let me I'll take this board off here. Let me get a brush. Start with I'll start with a half inch here. Now, let me take a little water here. Now I'm going to take let me take Quinacridone Violet, which is what I'm going to use today in my painting. But I would start out with that, and that color, according to the value now, this is down here. Quinacridone Violet is down here in the dark area, the dark range. Quinacridone Violet is a red violet, which is right here. So that's going to be in the dark value range. So let me start out with that here in the middle of this little test sheet. Rinse out the brush. Now I'm going to lighten that up, and I'm going to use titanium white. I'll bring that over here to the palette and mix it in a little bit. I'll rinse out the brush. If you're using a color, of course, you have to rinse out the brush if you're going to another color, or else you'll contaminate the palette, and you'll have to start over again. So I just put a little bit of white in with that mixture, and I'll come over here. And that kind of gives me a, according to the values of that, that gives me like a light area. I went from dark all the way to light. So I look at the value, comparing the value of that. And you can see that up here on this intensity chart. That value there is somewhere over here with the white mixed to it. Now, if I keep adding white to it, if I keep adding white to the mixture, you can see it gets lighter and lighter and lighter. And if I go the other way, if I add, let's say I want to darken up that color. Well, I'm going to take a little bit of Payne's gray into the palette. I'm going to mix that in with, and you'll see here on my intensity chart. Here's my Quinacridone Violet down here. When I start adding black to it or gray to it, it starts darkening it up right away and also dulling it down. So if I'm looking for a darker value, then I would add a black color to that, and that'll give me a darker range of that particular color. And I can go all the way out to as dark as I want to go. So there I've got the ranges now of that particular color. I've taken one color, Monochromatic Violet, and I've added white, and I've gone all the way down to this minimal value, which is white itself. I get a gradation of color from light to medium to a medium value here of Quinacridone Violet. Then I started adding a little bit of Payne's gray to it, and it got darker and duller as I went to the right. So I can lighten up a color, I can darken a color by using white and black. Okay, now down here at the bottom here on this chart, I've gone ahead and here's the middle value. This is about value right out of the palette. This is Quinacridone Violet right here in the middle. Now as I move to the left, I add a little bit of white to that. You can see the value and the intensity. The intensity goes up, it gets brighter, and the value goes down, it gets lighter. Over here, I added Payne's gray to Quinacridone Violet, and it gets darker, but also duller. It's not as bright as here. As I go further out, adding more and more of Payne's gray, it gets darker, all the way out here to black. So that's a nice chart here of Quinacridone Violet from its base color from the palette, all the way out to the white area, and then to the right, all the way to the dark area. Now I can do that with any color here in my palette. I have 15 colors, so I can go with any color. And I've done that here in the charts. You can see I've added in the blues, for example, this is cobalt blue right here. That's cobalt blue. I've added white to cobalt blue, and then I've added black over here to the cobalt blue to give me a darker mix. Okay. So with that in mind, today's class or today's demonstration, I'm going to do a monochromatic painting. Monochromatic painting. That means I'm going to paint with one color, and I'm going to use. Well, let's decide. Let's talk about the painting first. Let me set this aside. I decided I would do. The scheme today, or the subject today, is the Blue Ridge Mountains. But guess what? This is a photo scheme of Blue Ridge Mountains in different colors, because the lighting was different, the time of day was different, and even the season is different. For example, here most colors of the bring this up close. Most colors you see in the travel magazines, you'll see here the Blue Ridge Mountains, because it's all blue. That's probably the way you see Blue Ridge Mountains here. But you also can see during different parts of the day, either early in the morning or probably early in the morning, when it's misty out there, and the light is down low, just coming up over the horizon, you may get a color like this over here, which is almost like a rose, but I'm going to use Quinacridone Violet to paint this scene right here. And then down here, it's even a yellow ochre. You got yellow ochre and almost burnt sienna, a brown. It's like a brown and a yellow mix down here on this particular view of the mountains. And I found one also that's even in green. The Blue Ridge Mountains with a green tone. There are other colors in here, but the main one I wanted to show here was the green. So there's one subject, Blue Ridge Mountains, which is painted in a multiple of colors. So it really doesn't matter what color you use to paint a subject. The most important part of the painting is the value. Now, in a landscape, for example, it's very important. In a landscape, you want to show depth. You want to show the foreground, the middle ground, and the background. So you want to show depth. And perspective-wise, in a landscape, the further away you get, the lighter the values get. So that's typical here of a landscape where you're going to get light values in the background and a dark value in the foreground. And that shows you depth in a particular painting. In fact, all these show you a dark foreground and a lighter background as you go back. Right here in the blue is a dark all the way to a light blue. And the green goes from a light green into a middle green, and back. The green goes way back here. Okay, so that's a lesson. That's really the input today. Is the and what I did here also is I did a blow up of the particular one I'm going to do today. There's the painting for today. The painting reference for today. The Blue Ridge Mountains with a red-violet color and value scheme. So I'm going to do a monochromatic painting of this particular scene. And so that's the reference photograph you'll find in my Fun with Watercolors page on my website. And I also have a drawing that I'm going to use. And I'll bring it up. You can see that when you can download that from my website. I'll bring it up close so you can see. That's the drawing that shows you the zones of foreground, middle ground area, and the background. Okay, those are the three areas we're going to be painting today. And the sky. And the sky. All right. So what I'm going to do now, let's go over the equipment that I'll be using today. Let me move this aside. My palette, I'm basically going to be using this Quinacridone Violet. I'm going to be mixing it with titanium white to give me a lighter value. And I'll be mixing it with Payne's gray to give me a darker value. So those are the three colors I'll be using. Even though it's monochromatic. Monochromatic is one color, but I can change the value to make it lighter or darker to make it monochromatic. Okay, the brushes I'm going to use today is the Holbein brushes. I'm going to use the one 3/4 inch. These are the wash brush. I use the 1 inch, and I'm going to use the smaller round brush, which is the number 6 round. And I've already used here. I'm going to be using the 1/2 inch. These are all natural hair Holbein brushes. So let me go over the equipment again today. Quinacridone Violet is the color. That's the main color, base color. I'll be lighting it up with titanium white, and I'll be darkening it up with Payne's gray. These are Holbein's artist watercolors. I'll be using Holbein synthetic brushes. I'll also be using silver brush. Also the Hake, I'll be using that to wet down the paper. Gemini is the watercolor paper I'll be painting on. And all these supplies are available on my website, everettswatercolors.com. And my Fun with Watercolors page, which I showed you earlier in the broadcast, is where you'll find the photograph and the drawing references. And the Facebook Everett's Watercolors Art Group is where you can post your painting and let me have a chance to look at it and make a comment on it. So you're welcome to join that group and share. All right, let me put this aside. Okay. Okay, put that down. Make sure I want to go over everything I want to cover. So it's important you create your own chart, your own color chart, your own watercolor chart, your own color charts. your color wheel. Use your palette and create your own colors using your own colors in the and arrange them in the color wheel and arrange them in values and then play with the intensity, and that would help you on today's lesson also. Now, as far as our monochromatic painting, we can only rely on one color, but we can light it down and we can darken it up. So first I'm going to do is this is a quarter sheet of Gemini watercolor paper, and I'm going to start with the sky. And well, let me go ahead and get the color started. The sky is going to be a light color, light value. So I'm going to start out with Quinacridone Violet, and it's a light. Remember, I said in the very beginning of the session, I said, okay, you know what color I'm going to use Quinacridone Violet, but okay, that's the color. But now the most important part is what's the value? The value is going to be light. We'll add a little bit of white to that, a little bit of titanium white. That'll make it light. Okay, now before I get started, I'll pick up my large hake brush. This is the large hake, and just put in some water. Put it in clean water. And I'm just going to weten up the sky up here. Just get a little water up here so the paint will flow a little easier. And I don't want it soaking wet. I just want it damp. So I just want to have the water up there just to get the water flowing. Get the paint flowing. I'll put that aside. So now I'm going to pick up that brush now, loaded with the light color, and I'm going to go ahead and start out with that. Okay. Now as I go along, I can adjust it. I'm going to say, okay, well that's not dark enough at the top, so I'm going to add a little more Monochromatic Violet to darken it up just a little bit. I want it to be light, but I want it to be also the value I want. I might get a little bit darker than that. So I'm adding a little more pigment at the top. So this is like this will be like a graded wash. Where last week we were talking about washes. So the graded wash here at the top. Then I'm going to pick up a little bit of water, and now I'm going to continue on down. And I want the we'll talk about this in a moment. Let me give me some more. I'll get some more value in there. A little more color. So I'm adjusting the colors as I go along. That's the thing about watercolor. As long as it's still wet, you can still add. You can still modify it. You can still add a little bit of color to it, or change the color a little bit, or even add water to it if you had to. I'd stay away from adding water to it because that makes it too wet, and you want to keep it about a medium value, a medium amount of water in the brush. You don't want it too much water. You want enough to make it nice and moist, but you don't want it too wet to be where it's running off the page. Okay, all right, that's the start of the sky, and I'm going to refer back to the painting, a picture to see. You'll see here that the picture, and I'm not going to follow the picture. But I'm going to use it for references here. It's dark at the top, and it gets a little bit lighter as it comes down near the land. That's because of reflection from the landmass. So the little area here at the top here will be a little bit lighter than the top part of the sky. Okay, I'm going to dry this with a blow dryer. I'm going to dry it off just a little bit. So first thing I've done is I mixed up a little bit of Quinacridone Violet. And now I'm drying it down. I don't want to get too I don't want it too wet. I want to let's see how wet I want to get it here. Okay. All right, now the next level, as I come forward, I'm going to get darker. So now I'm going to add more pigment, and I don't want to go dark yet. So I want to keep the color in the yellow violet range. But I want it to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to paint the next area, the hill mass now. See in the background. This is the background hill mass. And I put it on while the sky was still wet. It wasn't dry yet, just slightly damp. The shine had gone away. I blew dry a little bit with a blow dryer, just a little bit, but I wanted to keep it a little bit damp because I wanted a soft edge. So I want it lighter, but I want it to be a little bit darker than the sky, but also want to have a soft edge because it's way off in the background. So that's two things I'm working on is also contrast. I'm working on edges. I'm looking at the value. Now that may be I'm gonna have to adjust that a little bit. We'll just continue on. I'm not gonna worry about that at all. We can adjust the values as we go along. But I want it to be a little bit darker than the sky, and we'll change that as we go along. We'll modify that. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of white now with that mix because remember I want to be a little bit lighter because there's a little bit of mist down at the bottom of the mountains. The base of the mountain, a little bit of mist, so it's a little bit lighter. So I'm going to put that in. And I don't want too much white though, but I want just a little mixture there to make it lighter. So I want a lighter value here at the bottom. And I can add just a little bit of water to that. And you'll notice I'm working, I'm not putting there's no texture back here either because it's so far away, it's way off in the background that you don't see any detail. It's just a mass, it's just a value back there. And let that dry up a little bit. It's still a little moist. We're gonna let it dry. Just want to get that color down. Okay, now I'm coming forward. Now this is a middle ground, so I really want to get a little more color now, a little more intense. So I'm adding more color now, so I'm getting more intense in the color. So my intensity now is going to go up. So this is really the middle ground. I'm going to put the intensity pretty high here because this is the middle ground. I want it to show it. This is really what I want to start showing off the mountain, and I'm going to show a little bit more of the edge here of trees and shrubbery and so forth at the top of the mountains. So I'm going to show a little more detail here, just a little bit, just a hint that it's a mountaintop with trees and bushes and so forth. But the color is just, we're painting this in one color. And we're just adding a different value here to give it a show of depth from light to dark. Okay, I'm gonna put a little more water in my brush. Come on down. I've really been using one brush. I haven't used the big wash brush, so I just decided you go ahead and use one brush. But I have a couple here in hand in case I needed another one. But with painting in one color, I don't really have to change brushes too much. Okay. All right, now let's start to dry a little bit. Now I noticed here, I'm going to put a little more white now in this mix. But now I'm coming at the bottom here, the bottom slope, which is going to be a little bit lighter. A little bit lighter at the bottom of the slope. We'll put that in there. You'll notice I'm pulling the color down from above and mixing it in a little bit with the white. Okay, now I've noticed here, let that rest a little bit. Now I've noticed here my background here has gotten a little bit light, so I'm going to go back in now and pick up a little bit more color here, this mixture, a little more white in it, and go back and add that back here. Add in another layer on top of this background because it needs to be a little bit darker, not too much darker, but a little bit darker than what it is right now. Okay, and the paper is still damp back there, so I'm going to get a soft edge. But I want to add a little more color back there to separate the sky from the landscape just a little bit. And as I come down, I want the lower part of that mountain to be in mist, where it's going to be a little bit lighter, and I can work on that a little bit more too. You know, keep that separated. Okay, now this one here, I can also add a little more color to it. So I'm going to keep adjusting the colors as I go along. Remember, I'm in monochromatic, so I can stay in one color. And all I'm doing is making changes to the value. Lighter, I'm making it lighter. In some cases, I'm making it darker. So I'm controlling the value by adding more pigment to the mix. I'm adding white to the mix if I want it lighter. Okay, so now I got one more layer down. I've got the background, middle ground, and the foreground. I know the foreground now is going to be really dark. So I've got the light background, medium. I've got the most intense one here in the middle ground, and then the foreground is going to be really dark. Okay, so light, medium, and dark values here as far as the mountains. So now I'm gonna punch this down. Now I'm gonna knock the intensity down by adding the black to it, but I'm going to also add the value. So there's a trade-off between going dark or light. You're going to lose the intensity, but you're either going to get it darker or duller, or you're going to get it lighter or brighter. So here I'm getting a real dark mix of this quinacridone. So now you're going to see it be a very dark purple. I can go ahead and put that in as the foreground. It's just going to be a real dark value here in the foreground to really show off that color. And I think I'll pick up the bigger brush here. I'll use the 1 inch flat. I'll load it up with lots of paint and get bigger brush strokes. Because I want to fill this whole area in down here with just a dark mix. So I wanted to have a simple subject today, which is the mountains. I love painting mountains. Mountains I think are very interesting. But I wanted to make it more of a value study and an intensity study, because this is the two areas that a lot of folks have little questions about, have a little problem with the understanding what it means, and also a little understanding of how the colors control the value and the intensity. And you really have the control in the brush and the mixture of how dark you want it and also how light you want it. Here I'm adding a little more texture here. I'm going to add a little more color, because this is the darkest color down here. You'll see now as I added more of that Payne's gray, the color really also got dull. So I'm going to put a little more pigment in that. I want the colors to be dark, but I don't want them to be flat. That's the problem with adding a darker color, or say a black color to another color, is the colors tend to get flat. So what you do there is you add more of your color back into that base to keep the colors alive. So here by adding a little bit of the color back into that dark mix, I'm able to capture the real color of the blue of the violet color, the dark violet. Okay, I think that the foreground now is just about the way I want it. I want it nice and dark. Now I'm going to work a little. I'm going to finish up on the middle ground now. So let me go back to my middle-sized brush here, my 3/4 inch. Let me go back into my mix. I'm going to add a little more color. I'm going to go back in now. I'm going to play a little bit more with this mix in here. I'll make that color a little richer, a little richer. So I make it look a little more like the color I like. Yeah, that's more like it. That's the red violet I'm really looking for. And that's going to be my middle ground mountain area is the red violet. And then the foreground is going to be toned down with a light value, which I added a little bit of white to, and more water to the background to lighten it up. And then so that I get three different values and also three different intensities of the color. Here's like a middle intensity. It's the color right out of the palette with a little bit of change. And the thing about painting a color or say a monochromatic painting, like it's going to change every time you do it. And you never try to repeat the same, because every time you do it, it's going to be different, and sometimes it's you get a better result. Sometimes it's a good practice to try something new. Okay, now I'm going to pick up a little bit of that white now and lighten this up. Just a little bit of white in here, and I'm going to bring that in. Bring that across. So now I'm adding that mist at the bottom of the slope. That mist you'll find in the mountains. It's always there. So now I'm painting the misty area. It's a little bit lighter. Okay. Now I'm going to go back with that same color I just had, and I'm going to bring that in now. I want to try to blend those two together, because I don't want any hard edges. I want all soft edges, because this is early morning or sometime during the day, wherever this happened. And on the bottom here, I lost a little bit of that dark color, so I'm going to put a little bit more of the dark in, so mix up a little more Quinacridone Violet, mixed in with that nice Payne's gray. Give me a dark violet. I don't want to touch that up there. It's still wet there, so I just want to get the color down in here. I'll go back and work on the edges in just a few moments. Okay, now the background, I'm going to go back and work on that. So I'm going to take a little bit of light. Now, this is very light. This is a lot of water now mixed in with the color. And I'm going to go back in and darken up this area back here just a little bit. I want a little more value here in the background, so it shows off. I want to keep it separate from the sky. As you notice, as you do this now, I'm also going to have to modify a little bit of the sky color. So every time you add a little color, a little value to something, it's all relative. This color is darker or lighter than the color next to it. So you look at the relativity of that value compared to what is next to, and that's how you judge the darkness or the lightness of a particular color. Okay, now I'm going to pick up a little bit of white. Now I'm going to pick up a little. I like that. I put that white in there to give me that light. Give me that light mix, which is in the misty area. It's the misty. It's the area below the slope where it's misty. It's cloudy. A lot of mist and moisture in the morning, so it's a dull color, but a lighter color. Now I'm going to take some of that same color I just did. I'm going to bring these together now. I want to bring these together so there's not too much of a band there. So now I'm blending. I'm putting the white, I'm mixing in the white value, the lighter value, with a little darker value. And I'm also touching this middle ground area a little bit, because I don't want the edges to be as sharp as the foreground. The foreground is going to have a larger contrast of sharp edges. So that's why I'm going over both the areas. I'm going over the middle ground edge, kind of smoothing it down a little bit, blending a little bit more. And I'm also blending in with the color above. All right, let me get just one more layer in there. Now I'm blending, just doing a horizontal stroke now, kind of blending the colors together. Don't want any texture back there. It's all flat. All flat color. Okay. All right, now I think the sky now needs to be modified too. So I'm going to take a little bit of that Quinacridone Violet, where we started. Add more water to it. I want the color, but I don't want the value. I want the color. I want the color to be nice, but I don't want the value. So add a little water to it. So I'm going to go in here now, add a little more color up here in the sky. Now remember, reason it looks dark now, but remember, watercolor dries about 30 to 40% lighter. So it may look dark, but it's going to lighten up as it dries. Okay, now I'm going to pick up some white. Pick a little bit of white, and I'm going to mix that in now with that color. Now we're starting to get the gradation now of the sky. The sky has got it's a light color, but it got too light. So we go back in, we modify that a little bit. Also, these edges will be ill-defined. They're not sharp back here. There's a little definition because it's in the background. It's a little bit dark, a little bit darker here. The ground's dark, a little bit darker in value than the sky, which is normal. Okay. Okay, well that's that's a demonstration there, and let me mark off the wipe a little bit of the excess. It's pretty well dry now. No much danger is going to fall into the painting. Okay. All right. So what I've done here now is I've painted a monochromatic painting of the Blue Ridge Mountains. I used the primary color Quinacridone Violet, and I added in the light value using titanium white, and then I added in the dark value by adding in Payne's gray. And I've got a light to dark transition. The background's lighter, way off in the background, and the middle ground I've left really nice and I like that rich color of that particular color. That's going to be my midtone, and then down here in the foreground is my dark value. And what I want to do now while I'm here, I made some paint strokes. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to clean up a little bit here in the foreground. Okay, and there's a little bit of texture down here also, trees and bushes and so forth. Okay, I can put a small mat around that. Put a small round mat around. It's about 11 by 14 size, and let me straighten it up a little bit. Try to look at the monitor here at the same time. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Let me take a look at the. Let me take a look at my screen over here before we finish off a little bit. Oh, hey, well, hi, Maureen. Good to see you. Yes, yes. A replay will be as soon as the program over. I'll have it on my website on everettswatercolors.com and go to the replay for it's my watercolors for 2023. Okay, I see you. Well, it's good to see you. Invited the family to join. That's great. I hope they're painters, or maybe if they're not painters now, maybe they will be in the future if they see what's going on. So that's exciting. Always get someone started. That's really a goal of mine, is to help people in what they're doing and also to get someone started on watercolors or on art.
Yes, her family is into arts.
Yes, good, wonderful. Okay, thank you, Gloria. All right, now I got a couple of little things I want to show you with this that I think might be interesting. I'm not quite done. I did a smaller one here for I did a little value plan here before the class. This is a much smaller one. It's like 8 by 10, and again, it's a different view. I did I did 5 layers instead of 4 layers. So again, the drawing, I mean, the picture itself, there's more layers in there than you can capture. Okay, and you can go as much detail as you want into it. But my thought here is to try to simplify the scene as much as possible. Don't make it so complicated that you're going to be, frustrated with getting the values correctly and so forth. So here I picked 3 values: light, middle, dark, with a light sky. So that's one thing I did. Another thing is uh, start out with a color chart of some kind, and practice how dark your mixes are. I went here from a light mix with the mix with white all the way to the this is right out of the palette color. Then I started adding darks to it. I had to start adding the Payne's gray. You can see I got all the way back to the dark. So work with a color chart, get a piece of scratch paper, and practice the values you want to use. And they pretty well match up the way I have here in the painting. You can see here, those colors pretty well match up the way I had planned out. The middle value, the light value, and then the dark value down here. Okay. So those are some hints there to do all the time. Okay. All right, I want to do something with this painting. I want to do something special with this painting. Now this is just a practice painting. But what I want to show you, I want to take this smaller. Let's see. First of all, got a couple reference photographs here I wanted to show you. Let's see. Coming right back. I'm trying to get my photograph here. Okay. Just like the photograph for the mountains, you always have a good reference or reference photo to go by, and then you can use your artist license to make changes to it. That's always a good idea. Here I'm going to add a little cabin. So I got a picture of an old cabin in the mountains up here. So this is not a reference photograph. It's just one I pulled out of my repertoire photos. So I'm going to go ahead and put I'm going to go ahead now. This is a charcoal pencil, a white charcoal pencil. Which is it's on my website also. But this is a good way to mark. Let's say I want to start here. Let's say I want to mark out an area. Now before I do that though, I'm going to have to dry this a little bit. So I'm going to blow dry the dark area. Okay, so I found a photograph. I found a photograph that I like, and now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do a little adaptation or a little something different to this painting. I'm going to put a little life into it. I'm going to paint a little life into this painting. It's pretty dull. Just a mountain sitting out there. So I'm going to add a little life. I'm going to add a cabin and do some other things to it. So first of all, make sure it's dry. That feels pretty good. Okay. All right. So you dry that out. Make sure it's completely dry, or else you're going to have problems when you start to do something like I'm going to do. Now I take the smaller brush. This is a small round brush, and I'm going to put it in water, and just take off the excess moisture. And it's just a damp brush. I'm going to go ahead and put water on top of this watercolor right here. Okay. Then I'm going to take, that's wet, and what that does, it loosens the color up. It reduces it. Now I'm going to take a towel, blot dry it, and rub that off. And then, let's try it again. Get a little more water on it. Okay, let's try again. So moisten brush over top of the paint. I didn't have enough water in the brush. I took out too much water. And you give it 10 seconds. What you're doing is you're reactivating the paint that's on the paper. And then you take a clean towel, terry cloth towel, and then you blot it, and then you rub. And what that does, it takes the it takes the paint off the paper. And I want to put a little chimney out here, so I'm going to add a little more right there. And I'm going to add a little window over here. Just add a window. Add some life to that. So I wet the paper. I blot it dry. Okay. So now I've got a little house top, And you know, just my form of art is minimize. Just do as much as you need to do to make it look real. So I'm going to show a little bit of rooftop and maybe a little bit of the siding over here, just a little bit of the side. Yeah, I'll put some more water on those areas. Let it sit for about 5 seconds, 5 to 6 seconds. Let it dry and rub it off. Okay. Now what I'm going to do now, um, I'm going to add a little smoke to the chimney here. So I'm going to take a little bit of this white, titanium white. I'm going to mix a little bit of Payne's gray with it. Yeah, right, Gloria. Gloria just showed, she showed me my favorite sign. Yes, this is impressionistic. And impressionistic is something that looks like, seems like, it's all you need to do. You don't have to put a lot of detail into it. Just put something there that has indication. So I mixed up a little bit of gray with white and Payne's gray. And I'm going to go ahead and load the brush. I'm going to put a little bit of smoke coming out of the smokestack. There. So someone's home cooking dinner, and that's as far as that goes. Let's do something else. I'm going to put a little. I'm going to draw in a little roadway here next to the house, just to do something different. Okay, just to do something different. And then maybe I'll put a fence over here. Okay, just to put some details down here to play with. Okay, uh, this photograph here. This photograph here had a roadway in it, and it has a fence line back here. So you know, use something, use your imagination, or get a photograph and just come up with an idea. So here I'm going to put a little water on the road. Okay, moisten the paper where you want to take up the paint. Let it dry for about 5 or 6 seconds, and let it dry, and rub away. Okay? And the more pressure you put on it, the more will come off. Start out with a real heavy pressure and lighten up your pressure as you come out. Okay, little roadway, and then for that little fence line, a couple of fence posts, maybe a railing across here. Let the water soak into the paper. Let it dry. Letting it dry is important because that will, if, otherwise you'll smear the whole area with water. Okay. All right. So one last thing I want to do here is take the Payne's gray into the small brush, and up here in the sky, I'm going to add a bird. You can add more birds, but I'm going to just put one up there. And my smoke, I'm going to add a little more white to my smokestack. The gray faded out, so go back and modify a little bit of the gray coming out of the smokestack, and I could even add a little more white to the house, just just to doctor it out, a little more white there. Little highlights on the fence. Okay, so I got a little cabin in the woods on the Blue Ridge Mountains, and it was colored in Monochromatic Violet. Okay. Well, also I want to show you one more thing before we leave. Uh, this was a picture of something I found on the internet, and I went on there and said, "Give me a snow scene, a night snow scene," and this is one I found. Uh, there's a lot of free video, a lot of free photographs on the internet you can find. It's free royalty, so you know they're okay to print off. But I'm not going to paint the scene. I'm going to use it as a reference. But I wanted to do a night scene. And I wanted some water and maybe some snow on the ground. And so I eliminated the houses, eliminated most of the trees, and so I made up my own composition out of this painting right here. I took this painting as a reference. Let me show you what I came up with. This is the monochromatic painting of a snow scene at night. This was painted in let's see if I have them here. Lost my sheet. I used ultramarine blue at the top. I used the cobalt blue in the middle, and I used a cerulean blue here at the bottom. I used all three blues, and the fourth blue I used was peacock blue. Peacock blue gave it a nice shadow pattern on the snow. And I put a little moon up here in the sky with a little cloud across the top of that. And in the water, I highlighted the water with a little bit of showing movement. I showed little highlights on the water. And at the bottom, I added a little waterfall at the bottom, just as a surprise. So let me bring it up closer to the viewer. That's my monochromatic examples of painting in one color. And this happens to be a piece of mat board that I just painted. I painted the color in one on the outside. So let's go to my painting table. Let's go to my main camera. Well, you know, I had fun today. Number one, I enjoy painting mountains. I looked at mountain scenes and water scenes. Any kind of outdoor scene is fine, but mountains are fine, trees are fine, and so forth. But today I wanted to show a monochromatic painting using just one color.
You got a comment, wow, wow, wow.
Excuse me, I take a little sip here. I've been talking so much, my throat gets a little dry. Thank you for your comments about that. Yeah, I really think it turned out really nice. It's one of those kind of paintings where I started out with an idea. I wanted a monochromatic. Monochromatic means one color, so I used three different values of colors out of my palette. You can come up with any kind of color scheme you want using one color. You can darken and lighten like I showed today. So this is just examples of things you can play with. You can take a scene and make it several times over using a different color each time. So that's really pretty fascinating, and that's really I would say a challenge to you to try something more than once in different colors. That would be something to try. Number one, you're going to learn about the values of a color. And number two, you'll also understand and would appreciate the intensity of the color. Those are the two things I want to get across today. With value, the value really makes the painting. It doesn't matter what color you put it in. The value tells you the story of the painting. So that's the thing you need to worry about or plan on or practice. Okay, well, I hope you liked today's program, and I enjoyed presenting it to you. Those of you who are visiting for the first time, give me a like, give me some thumbs up, and recommend my program to your friends and anyone else interested in art. I'll be on here next Thursday at 2 o'clock at Eastern Standard Time, and I'll be on Facebook and on YouTube. So I hope to see you next week, and also let me know on Facebook if you can paint one or try something, and give me a go at talking about it and maybe helping you out. So I'll see you next week on Tuesday.